Hi everyone, and welcome to my options portfolio overview. First, I'll hit all of the major indices, starting with the SPY, the QQQs, as well as the Russell 2000. But really, I want to talk about some energy plays. So we have USO, SLB, MRO, and NOV. Basically, anything related to oil right now is going up, as oil is benefiting from at least some short-term inflation, if not something that's going to last a little bit longer. Then, of course, we'll take a look at my options portfolio, starting with Robinhood and Tastyworks. Then I'll finish up with my watch list. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I do this video every 2 weeks, as well as individual stock reviews and passive portfolio overviews, so definitely hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future content. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. Starting with the daily chart here on the S&Ps, you can see we're still in a very strong bull trend, and the S&Ps are still riding pretty much this 9 EMA, or the Tenkan-sen if you're familiar with Ichimoku clouds, and we're still in a very strong bull trend on the daily. Moving over into the 4-hour chart, you see the same thing. We broke out here above previous highs on Friday, and it looks slightly overextended here. We might get a little bit of a down move into Monday, or maybe even into Tuesday, but I don't expect that to be big, and then I expect we will continue here on the S&Ps, which means I'm still bullish on the S&Ps. Moving over here to the NASDAQ or the QQQs on the daily chart, still showing bullish price action on the daily chart. But if you look at the 4-hour here, you can see it's slightly bearish, which means I'm basically neutral here on the QQQs going into next week. And then finishing up here with the Russell 2000 on the daily chart, you can see we've been flat going back to mid-February at this point. Looking at the 4-hour chart, you can see we're inside the cloud here, which means I am neutral in terms of direction. And we're kind of seeing this triangle come to a conclusion here in the next week or two, but I expect we will trade in between there until we see a breakout one way or another. Currently, we are kind of on the upper end here in terms of this triangle, and you can see the stochastics are getting into overbought territory, which means I expect a move higher, maybe Monday, Tuesday, and then a little bit of a retrace, potentially retesting these lows here towards the end of the week or early next week. But the main play here for this week for me is oil. Oil is seeing some pretty strong upward price action over the past few weeks, going to mid-April, going back to around mid-April where we saw some bullish price action here on USO. On the 4-hour chart, you can see everything here is bullish. We have a green cloud. Short-term moving average is above the long-term. And you can see my lagging price action line here is well above the cloud. So everything here is showing bullish price action. And to me, this is because we're seeing inflation across all commodity markets. And oil is one of the industries that really benefits from this because it does not cost them extra money to generate the oil the way that they have been. So any rise in price really benefits the company in terms of direct profits. So this ticker is USO, and I expect to see some new highs over the next week or two. Some of the stocks that are really benefiting from this is SLB. And you can see I can't even really draw a trend line on this large move here from the mid 25s all the way up to $32. This is just a really dramatic move. Again, this is because we're seeing inflation across all commodities, and companies like this are going to continue to benefit. So SLB will be on my playlist for next week, as well as NOV. This is NOV, again, another very strong up move based on inflation, in my opinion, right at recent highs here from mid-March. And if this price moves any higher early next week, it will be a clear technical breakout, and we can expect to see a nice strong continuation of this move. Understand that on the last 2 plays, we are a little bit overextended, in my opinion. So if we do get a retrace and maybe a buying opportunity on this 50 moving average, that would be a good entry point, but it still seems to me like these have some room to run based on the strength of their move in the last week. Another stock that's not seeing quite as much strength in its move is Marathon Oil, or MRO. Still a clear uptrend here, and all of the indicators are bullish with the green cloud, short term above the longer term, and price action here above the cloud. And you can see we have this trend line continuing up, and it seems like we're going to get a retest of previous highs up around $13 per share. If you're looking for a little less volatility versus the last 2, this seems like a good way to make some money. Moving over into my Robinhood portfolio, you can see I only have a few positions here with Ford, GE, Simon Property Group, as well as Tattooed Chef. And I have a couple of cryptos here, and I did trade some Doge over the last few weeks as well, but I did close out that position for a pretty solid profit, which is great because Doge is currently trading just below 50 cents after reaching all the way up to 75 cents. Overall for this portfolio though, it's doing pretty well. Almost $1,500 in the past month, which is much needed because I was down quite a bit in March, and then we made new highs here going into May. Moving over to my Tastyworks portfolio, you can see it's been pretty rough here in my taxable account. It's saying I'm down around 3,000 year to date, which is pretty rough after being up around 6,000 early in the year. I've been trying to trade some shorter term options and make some more directional plays, which haven't worked out too well, but I'm still learning and this is something that I want to continue to do. And then my Roth IRA, which is my traditional style, has been doing pretty well. Moving over to my current positions, you can see I'm trading some small futures within the S&P 500. This is very similar to trading stock. It's just based on the S&P index versus SPY. Not that different, but it does require a little bit less capital as well. These are some longer term futures that I'm also trading. And then we have some corn futures, which have been on a pretty dramatic run. You can see this is the corn futures chart, which is just sprinting to the upside. Here in March, it was trading at around 530, and currently it's at 732, which is obviously a massive run here in the last little bit. Again, based on inflation, in my opinion. Then I have the 10-year Treasury notes, which I don't expect to move very much over the next few weeks. And then I have an iron condor here on the Dow. The Dow has been pretty strong here recently, and I'll probably look to take off the calls. Not sure why I sold calls, as this is still a very strong trend here on the daily chart, and I do expect that to continue as the recovery plays continue to do well. GLD, very bullish position, as well as Disney. Disney does have earnings this coming week, so we'll see how that goes. And then, as I talked about the Russell, I have an iron condor. I'm neutral on them. I have a short-term iron condor here on Lululemon. Netflix, I'm still bullish going into the week after their pretty large sell-off from earnings. Nike, this is an iron condor. I have a lot of iron condors here recently because the market has been a little bit volatile and I want to protect myself from some larger moves in the wrong direction. I do have a put spread here on Starbucks, which I need to roll out or close. We'll see how it goes this coming week. Hopefully I can close that for at least break even or a small profit. This is actually a leap call that I bought because SLV is again benefiting from inflation, and we're starting to see that breakout here on the daily chart right above the cloud, which indicates to me we're going to see some accelerated upward price action, hopefully to that $30 range from current prices. Here we have the Semiconductor Trust, again, another iron condor, SPY, very similar to what I had before, but this is on the actual stock and it's also longer term. Square, again, iron condor. I will look to take this off this week. It's in a small profit right now. We'll see how that goes. And then I have a very short term iron condor here on Tesla. And then I'm also bullish here on X, which is United States Steel Corp, which again is benefiting from that inflation. You can see this massive run here going all the way back to the beginning of October. And then lastly here I have an iron condor on the oil and gas index from Spiders, the same company that does SPY. We made some highs here in March and it's trading right in the middle of this range. I should suspect that it's going to be bullish here going forward, but maybe we can get a little bit of a retrace back down to the 50 moving average. That way I can close those calls and then we can continue on with the bullish price action that I expect to see from basically all oil stocks going forward. Moving on to my watch list, you can see we have a couple of earnings plays coming up with Cisco. We have Peloton coming up at the end of May, Yeti on the 13th, Lemonade on the 11th, Disney on the 13th, Tattooed Chef on the 12th. Otherwise, in terms of stocks that have some pretty high IV right now, we have Cisco, partly because they have earnings coming up. We have Apartment Investment Management Company, which is technically a REIT, but it has some really high IV right now. And you can see it's on this pretty large run here recently. Might be a little bit overextended here as we had a recent top and then a pullback, but this is still very bullish price action. And it's also a cheap stock here at only around $7. So if you have a small account, you can still play in this stock. Otherwise, Snapchat is on the board. As I mentioned, USO and MRO are on the board. And if you trade any futures or you have access to futures, basically all of the indexes are currently tradable in terms of selling options. Whether it's an iron condor or you have a directional bias, the IV in there is very strong. Let me know what your directional bias is in the major indices, and let me know what you think of oil. Is oil going to continue to go up, or is it getting a little bit overextended? Will this inflation continue for quite a while, or is this a short-term bump like the Fed continues to say? If you got any value out of this video, definitely like and subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any of my future stock reviews or portfolio overviews. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes, and have a great day.